So in thinking about these debates about media policy and media freedom and what that term really means, it's helpful to use sort of an analytical paradigm or set of visions that the philosopher Thomas Sowell has developed in some of his work, and specifically in his splendid work, A Conflict of Visions, which helps explain the ideological origins of political struggles. Because there really are two very different worldviews at work in the field of media policy, just as there is in the broader debate about political philosophy and policy in general. If you think about the two paradigms that Thomas Sowell used, he described what he called the constrained vision versus the unconstrained vision. In the constrained vision, there's a realization that humans are imperfect and that they will make mistakes, whereas in the unconstrained vision, there are those who believe that humans are more perfectible and it's just a matter of having the right amount of planning by a top-down elite. The constrained crowd, however, believes more in a bottom-up approach of spontaneity and spontaneous markets, and understands that there are trade-offs and unintended consequences to top-down solutions. But for the unconstrained vision, there's only a concern about outcomes and patterned justice, if you will, and fairness in equal outcomes at the end of a day. But the constrained vision, who focuses more on liberty and fairness and opportunity, is concerned about the opportunity and the fairness of the process of a marketplace. This constrained vision folks basically believe in prudence and patience versus the sort of passion of the unconstrained crowd, who believes that it's just a matter of being well-intentioned enough to get things done and caring enough. And so these two different worldviews very much shape the debate over media policy and this debate over media freedom. And for those of us who subscribe to the more constrained view of what I regard as real media freedom, we understand what the unconstrained, or what I call the cyber collectivist movement, doesn't, which is that there is no such thing as perfect patterned equality. There's no such thing as perfect fairness in outcomes. No matter how hard you try or how well-intentioned your plans may be, they can fall apart because of the unintended consequences of such top-down meddling and planning of markets. Because at the end of the day, you just can't stop people from exercising freedom of choice. And in a world where people are free to choose the media that they watch, consume, or produce, there are going to be very unequal outcomes. And that's what many people in the cyber collectivist movement can't tolerate. And so you get things like the fairness doctrine, and even more Orwellian people who propose fairness doctrine-like regulations for even the internet era, because they fear that, not enough people are listening to the right things or watching the good stuff or eating their media greens, so to speak. So the problem is that vision ends in control of how media works, what's produced, who gets to produce it, on what terms, and so on. And for those of us who believe in real media freedom, who take a more constrained approach to this issue, to use Thomas Sowell's term, we understand that we want to establish a simple process with simple rules of the road that allow for people to exercise their own free will and their own best judgment and see where that takes us in the media world. Because the opposite recipe and the prescriptions of groups like the regulatory group Free Press, or people like Bob McChesney, who started the place, is truly totalitarian in its scope and its prescriptions. It basically would have our government planning almost every part of our media policy experiences and media marketplace experiences. And I don't think that's the real media freedom that America wants or deserves.